Hello! Today we are going to do part 3, and part 3 is going to consist of having a point and finding the 6 trig functions. But before we get into that, this is our coordinate plane, and we know here that x and y are positive. If x and y are positive, that would mean cosine and sine are positive. Cosine and sine are positive. That means sine divided by cosine, which would be tangent, is also positive. So all trig functions are positive. Here we have x is negative, y is positive, which means sine is positive. X is negative, which means cosine is negative. If a positive divided by a negative would tell me that tangent's negative, so sine is positive in my second quadrant. X is negative, y is negative, which means sine and cosine are negative, which means tangent, sine divided by cosine, would be positive. And quadrant 4, x is positive, y is negative, which means cosine is positive, sine is negative, which means tangent is negative, so only cosine is positive. What we like to say to remember this is all students take calc, and we're stating that A, all trig functions are positive in our first quadrant. S, sine, and the reciprocal function, cosecant, are positive in the second. Tangent and cotangent are positive in the third. Cosine and secant are positive in the fourth. This is going to help us when we are labeling our points. So, if we have theta to be the acute angle in standard position whose terminal side contains the point P, which is 5, 3, that means our x-coordinate is 5, our y-coordinate is 3. We need to find our 6 trig functions. In order to find our 6 trig functions, we need to find our radius. So we're not on the unit circle anymore, and that's where we have to take y divided by r, x divided by r, or our hypotenuse. We can find our hypotenuse by using Pythagorean theorem. So 5 squared plus 3 squared equals r squared. 25 plus 9 equals r squared. R squared equals 36, which means r is equal to 6. So when we are finding the sine of theta, if this is theta, always with our x-axis, opposite over hypotenuse, which would be 3 over 6, which simplifies to 1/2. This 3 is also the y component, which is where we get y divided by r. Cosine of theta, adjacent over hypotenuse, or x over r, which is 5 over 6. Tangent of theta is 3 over 5, which is opposite over adjacent, which is also y over x. Secant, I'm lying to you, cosecant of theta is the reciprocal of sine, which is 2 over 1, which is 2. Cosine goes with secant, which is 6 over 5. And cotangent of theta would be 5 over 3. So what we want to do is plot our point. We want to draw a line from the origin to that point so we can form the terminal side of our angle. We are then going to draw our perpendicular line to create our triangle. and then put theta where our reference angle would be. Something for us to remember. Our hypotenuse can never and will never be negative. This reason is because our hypotenuse is the distance from our origin to the point, and distance can never be negative. So our hypotenuse will always be positive. Our x and y will be where we have a negative. If I have a point -4, 2, I will then start by drawing my point -4 up 2. I will draw a line from my origin to my point, and I will draw a perpendicular line to my x-axis. I label this angle theta, and now label the sides of your triangle. We went to the left 4, which means that is -4. We went up 2, which is 2. To find my hypotenuse, I would do 2 squared plus -4 squared is equal to r squared. 4 plus 16 is equal to r squared. R squared is equal to 20. Square root both sides. R is equal to 2 root 5. In order to find the sine, cosine, tangent, we use this triangle. Sine, opposite over hypotenuse. 2 over 2 root 2. Root 5, I'm sorry. 2 over 2 reduced to 1, which is equal to 1 over root 5. Multiply by root 5 in our numerator and denominator, and we get root 5 over 5. Cosine, adjacent, -4 over 2 root 5. -4 over 2 is -2 over root 5. Rationalize, so we get -2 root 5 over 5. Tangent, opposite over adjacent, 2 over -4, which is -1/2. So just like we said before, all students, sine is positive in my second quadrant, just like it is in my ratio. Cosine is negative, tangent is negative because it is not sine, or cosecant. I'm going to take 1/5 and flip it to get root 5 over 1. Secant, I'm going to take -2 over root 5 and get root 5, negative root 5 over 2. -1/2 flipped is -2. You guys try number 2.